Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. Michaela here, and Doge, say hi Doge. Doge! We got an ear lift, that's enough. So I've been nervous, sharing as much about Arbonne as I've been sharing lately, because if you know me, you know that my true why, the foundation of everything I do, is soul freedom, spiritual freedom. And in my experience, I've both sought that with the biblical God and without him. And so because I've experienced what it's like on that journey without him, I now know that I can't do it without him. And so I'm coming to you today because I have a couple of friends who have been deeply inspired by my radical come to Jesus moment this year. And one friend in particular, he was like, I wish I could have that. He's like, I want that. It's not that I don't want it, I just don't feel it, so I don't seek it. And so I had something to say about that. I was thinking about relationships, how, when you're building a relationship with a new friend or romantic person in your life, whatever kind of relationship you're building, the connection grows over time the more you get to know each other, right? Like the loyalty, the trust, the faith in that person and in your relationship. And so it's really the same thing with Jesus. And that's why God gave us Jesus, God gave us Christ, is because before it was like this impersonal, it was more difficult to relate to God and to connect with God and to come to God without being really scared. So, Christ was given to us as an example of how to live our lives, so that we're pulling heaven down rather than hell up, and creating actual fruits to our labor rather than fruitless labor, and, better relationships, more peace, all the things. But also Christ was given to us as the personal form of God for us to know that he always lives within us. He exists within our heart. He gave us his spirit to dwell within us. And so, you don't have to go to church, though church is an amazing place to connect with the Spirit, but really it's just a seeking of God with your whole heart and soul, and realizing that it's a relationship you build. And so you got to keep asking him questions. I think a lot of times too, we think that we can't ask God questions, that we can't question him at all, and still be believers that he knows and loves. But that's the thing, is some of his biggest disciples, the people who worked the hardest for him in the Bible, were people who had their own journey of struggling with faith and questioning God. And the more you question, the more you give him a chance to reveal his character to you. So questions are actually a good thing. Another thing is just reading his word, like the Bible. I feel like I've understood so much more about God's character the more I read it, because it is the living word. And when you're reading it, you're giving him a chance to communicate with you about any random thing you might be going through in your life. You might think oh, if I flip open to Numbers, it's totally not going to relate to what I'm experiencing in my romantic life or my diet or what the heck ever. But God will take any opening that you give him and find a way to communicate with you if that's what your heart is seeking. And so, yeah, for me earlier this morning, I was kind of stressed out. I'm just figuring out my life, okay? And so there's this thing that I applied for that's going to require a lot of me, and they might thoroughly investigate me, and it's about to pretty much set me up on this path of leadership that I don't even know that I'm ready for. The devil definitely tries to tell me I'm not ready for it, but I'm just leaning into what God says. And so I'm in this kind of place of panic, and I open up because I'm finishing the first 5 chapters of the Bible, so the Torah. The first 5 are called the Torah. And I'm on like the final stretch of Deuteronomy, and I'm reading this line that I just underlined right before I closed my book, checked my email, got all overwhelmed, and I opened it back up and read that line again. It's crazy how quick we can forget, but it said, "Don't be afraid and don't panic, because the Lord your God will go before you and destroy all of your enemies and make a way for you," essentially. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm sitting here in this place of panic. My friend just asked me how I was. I was like, actually, I'm panicking. And then I opened my Bible and it was like, don't be afraid and don't panic, because the Lord will go before you and take care of it. And I'm just like, you will. And that's kind of what it's like communicating with God. It's like all these inside jokes that literally nobody else would understand, because it's an intimate relationship between you and him, all happening within your own heart. I think the next challenge is then once you know his word and you're actually spending time reading his word, is then actually obeying his word. And the Bible says all the time that if you really love your God, then you'll obey his word. And I think before that used to really turn me off, but now I realize it's because like I know nothing. Like it's kind of like a parent that's instructing their children because they know and want what's best for them. And then the kid being like, no, I'm gonna do it my own way, and then just, making a mess or whatever. That's literally how it's been in my life anytime I haven't followed God's guidance. And so now for me, like I'm really just challenging myself to radically transform every area of my life and just put God at the center of everything I do and all the decisions I make, because I know that that's actually what's going to be fruitful to my soul and for my relationships and for my life. I literally can't even go shopping without consulting with God. It's actually crazy because like I get anxiety when I'm shopping because I don't want to like buy the wrong thing or end up regretting a decision or wish I would have bought something and not. And so literally I even pray when I'm shopping. And I notice it's been like, God, if I'm not supposed to have this, convict my heart to put it back. If I am, like, encourage me to get it. Literally every little thing I keep him at the center of. And the more you lean on him, the more he shows up for you. I think that was literally what the daily devotional I read today was too, is like, he loves us for our weaknesses. Like we oftentimes think that because of our weaknesses, there's no way we can show our face to the Lord because we're so guilty and shameful and weak and we should be better and stronger and all the things. But no, he loves us especially because of our weaknesses, because the weaknesses are typically what leads us to the foot of the cross to actually consult with him and spend time with him. Like we are his children. And if you're a parent, I feel like you can understand too, which I'm not a parent, I mean, besides to my dog, but like wanting your children to want to spend time with you and to want to listen to you. And so, yeah, he loves us even for our weaknesses because that's what leads us to him. And so, yeah, if you feel like you can't really feel God in your life, you just have to seek him with your whole heart and soul, and he will present himself to you. It's seriously a relationship that you build, and the more that you build it and spend time with him, the more you feel it as true. And then eventually it's like, there's still, like, we're always going to have questions. We're always going, like, well, this is a spiritual war. It's like the devil never stops. He never stops trying to steal the word and work of God. He never stops trying to steal your soul and manipulate you into doing things his way. He never stops. So if you are comfortable, then that probably means that you're just, how did my preacher just put it? You're drifting because when you put your feet solid into the ocean, for instance, then you're going to feel a resistance coming against you, and it's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be hard, but you're going to be rooted into what you value. For instance, his example was his mom told him, don't move between here and here. He, wanted to love and obey his mom. And so like his values are to stay rooted right here. But there's discomfort of the wave coming against you. That's life. And so typically though, you lift your feet up and it gets easier, but you're drifting farther and farther away of what's actually good for you and what you actually value. So the war doesn't stop. But the more you seek God, like you literally have to be up in that word, seeking him, building that relationship. For me, all the time, this is like the last thing I really want to say is I know people who are so shook when like real criminals and addicts and just crazy people end up being so gung-ho for God and the Bible. And I feel like there's almost like a stigma, like a bad smell in the air when people like talk about people like that. But my explanation of that is because we, like, I consider myself one of those people, we need more God because we have more voids to fill, and we know it. And we know if we're not filling those voids with God, we're going to be filling those voids in other ways. So I know for me, I have to literally seek God with my whole heart and soul, or the devil is going to look for openings at any opportunity to get me and to distract me from what God actually has for me and everybody that's going to come into contact with me. Because, you know, when you allow His Spirit to flow through you, you're also reaping the benefits of the fruits that are flowing through you. You're absorbing them too. So that's all I have to say today. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on the latest content. Okay, also share this with a friend. Like, if you feel like this helped you, share it with a friend. So, you know, sharing is caring. Okay, I'll see you guys next time.